Today's Sunday, August 31st, 2025. Tuesday, September 2nd, marks 30 years since I had the honor of marrying the love of my life, Jamie. This is the first year in about 15 years that we're not going to be spending the Labor Day weekend with great friends at the Crandon Off-Road Races, and we've decided to do something different this year to celebrate our 30th anniversary. So we're going to be taking a houseboat trip to Voyageurs National Park. So Jamie Teagan and I did a similar trip in 2015, also using Voyageur Resort as the base of operations. So we're going to head out today. We've got about a 6-hour drive northwest of our home in Tomahawk, Wisconsin, to the Minnesota-Canadian border. We're going to bring you along. We made a quick stop in Iron River to pick up one of Jamie's favorite sweet meads. When we did this trip in 2015, we had lunch at BW3's in Duluth, which is about the halfway point of our drive. We decided to keep the tradition alive. Our arrival at the Voyagaire Lodge was met with a heavy downpour that we decided to wait out before checking into our room for the first night. It was the first of many weather challenges we'd faced during our trip. We checked into our room and then headed downstairs to the Broken Skeg Bar and Grill to have a few drinks. We took a walk around to enjoy what had become a beautiful evening and to refamiliarize ourselves with the operation. We even managed to find the Jolly Jackie, which was the boat that Jamie Teagan and I had in 2015. The old girl didn't have any more scheduled trips for 2025 and was in dry dock. We returned to the Broken Skeg and had a great meal. We then went back outside to watch the sunset. Rise and shine, ladies. It's launch day. We enjoyed a great breakfast, and we were thankful for a clear morning that allowed us and the dock staff to get our gear on the houseboat named the Island Hopper. This 36-foot houseboat is what Voyageur calls a sun cruiser model. Once we got our minnows and night crawlers, it was time for Davey from Jamaica to give us an overview on the finer points of operation of the houseboat. Voyageur dock staff drive the houseboat away from the dock as well as back to the dock when returning. They had me take the rental fishing boat from the dock and board the houseboat in the lake. With the houseboat underway, Davey jumped into a boat piloted by one of his coworkers, and just like that, we were on our own. The navigational tablet was new since 2015. It came in very handy, but it didn't have the same old school feel as binoculars and paper maps. We saw a few seaplanes over the course of our vacation. About 30 minutes into our trip, we came to what's known as the Pinch. It was the most narrow spot we'd have to navigate all week. Many of the lakes in Voyageurs National Park have the United States on the south side of the lake and Canadian land to the north. Red and green buoys are used to mark the navigation channels in U.S. waters. Also on the U.S. side, white buoys or permanent day markers are used to mark the countless rocks right at or just below the water's surface. You are allowed to go into Canadian waters, but you are not allowed to touch Canadian soil. Also, our friends to the north do not mark rocks in their waters, so navigating in Canadian waters can potentially be a very risky endeavor. This sheer cliff in Grassy Bay is approximately 125 feet tall.
Kind of gravelly.
My first mate was watching for large rocks as we came into our first mooring site. All houseboats must be beached and tied off before sunset each night. Anxious to get out fishing, I hastily figured out how to attach my makeshift live scope mount to the rented fishing boat, and we headed out to knock off the open water fishing rust. We caught 3 small walleyes. Little did we know we would only catch 1 more walleye the rest of the trip. Knowing we had questionable weather coming in the following day, we decided to head back and have a relaxing evening. We decided to have our anniversary meal a day early. After a great meal, we enjoyed the beautiful sunset from the upper deck of the Island Hopper. At the start of the second day aboard the houseboat, I could almost hear my dad saying, "Red sky and morning, sailors take warning." A foot washing pan and a rug goes a long ways to keeping beach sand out of the interior of the houseboat. We decided to untie and head west toward Namakan Lake at a breakneck speed of 6 miles an hour. It takes a little bit to get used to knowing how fast to drive the boat into shore. A lot depends on whether it's sand, clay, or rock. If you drive in too fast, you can find yourself stuck on the beach. If you go too slow and don't drive far enough on the beach, the boat moves around a lot even when tied up. Only about 10 out of Voyageurs' 30 houseboats were out during our trip, but with 200,000 acres plus of water, you would only occasionally see other houseboats. There are probably about 70 official National Park Service houseboat sites in Voyageurs National Park. There are probably about that many unofficial sites as well. Part of the adventure and the fun is trying to find a site each night that is protected from the prevailing winds. Jamie and I went fishing again. We only caught a few small rock bass. It was another frustrating experience. I even caught a snag of an old lure. Back at the houseboat, Jamie and Bailey did some quick exploring and got back just before the heavy rains hit. Despite trying to find a protected mooring site, overnight, higher winds created waves that flooded the fishing boat. Thankfully, I was prepared for just such a situation, and I brought a portable bilge pump. It was this first morning in the upper 30s when we realized that our houseboat furnace would only work intermittently. We used a combination of houseboat sites shown on the navigational tablet along with Jamie's map from 2015, including notes of where we stayed on that trip. 10 to 15 mile an hour winds across Lake Namakan gave us a small taste of what we'd experience later in the trip. There's a boating saying called red right return, meaning when you're going against the current, in other words, returning to the source of the water, you keep red buoys to your right. However, in this chain of lakes, there is a point in which the current changes. When you reach this point, you need to know to flip your reds and greens. After we got through the relatively calm waters of a connecting channel, I decided the first mate needed some experience at the helm in rougher waters. I think my first mate cracked under pressure because shortly after this, she literally tried to finger zoom a paper map. We found a great secluded site in the northeast corner of Lake Kabetogama. We would stay here for 2 nights. That'll buff out. The official houseboat sites are managed by the National Park Service. Some of these sites have actual mooring rings, but more often than not, we tied to trees. Despite daytime highs in the upper 40s, we bundled up and went out fishing again, bound and determined to try to catch a meal of fish. Even with light intermittent rain, we stayed at it. We tried fishing shallow, we tried fishing weed edges, drop-offs with crawlers and minnows, as well as daredevils and crankbaits. Still had no luck. I dropped Jamie off, and I went back out and trolled crawler harnesses through a variety of depths. No dice. Even though the following morning was mostly cloudy, it still provided some beautiful views. Jamie was able to take some really nice photos with her phone, including some distant canoers. While a number of our mooring sites were on islands, this was on mainland. Nonetheless, we still felt comfortable letting Bailey run and explore the area. Sensing I was getting rather frustrated with the fishing, Jamie suggested we have a land day and stay 2 nights at this site. It was a good decision. We gathered some wood and started our only campfire of the trip. Even though Bailey was now 12 years old instead of 2 when we took our first trip on the houseboat, she ran around like a puppy and rolled in the grass. The Voyageur service team came out and unsuccessfully tried to repair our furnace. Bailey thought the pirates were coming in. Jamie started fishing from shore, so I decided to do the same. I made 6 casts, got snagged with weedless lures 4 times. I had had enough fishing. Jamie caught a little smallmouth. Then Jamie caught a nice smallmouth. It was enough to make me get in the boat and keep trying. I fished every way I could think of and got snagged one more time. Totally frustrated, I threw on the old lure that I had snagged a few days prior, despite the fact that it had missing and rusty hooks, bound and determined to get it snagged and officially end my fishing. Wouldn't you know it, I caught the only eater walleye of the trip. Bound and determined to try to catch one more eater walleye, the furnace repair guys had given Jamie a tip of a rock cliff to fish right on about a mile from our campsite, so we gave it a whirl. Shocker, we had no luck. As Jamie and I enjoyed our grilled walleye appetizer, Bailey was focused on recovering from her active day. As we were leaving this site the following morning, it took some serious sawing back and forth on the steering wheel for the 50 horsepower Yamaha to eventually crab walk the houseboat off of shore. With rain falling, we left the protected bay and headed to the eastern end of Kabetogama. Being a long east-west lake with a strong west wind, I knew things were going to get spicy when we got to the main body of water. The 20 minutes or so that we had to do going parallel to the waves really rocked the boat. Thankfully, things smoothed out when we were able to go with the wind at our back. When we got to Namakan, things got even worse. The wind seemed to pick up, and instead of white-capped chop, there were large swells that really rocked the boat. There was probably about 20 minutes where Jamie had a serious question of whether we should be out there, and probably about 2 minutes of that for me. We deviated from the main navigation channel and ducked into smoother inland waters. We then had a drag race at 6 miles an hour with another houseboat called the Cruise Ship, which we eventually won. After driving the boat for 5.5 hours straight, we reached back to the Pinch. We traveled a bit further to our mooring site, which was close to base, so we could get back early in the morning. Boats need to be returned by 9 a.m., and you can start returning at 7. Having owned and driven our pontoon boat since 2016, I learned a lot about how wind affects large boats like this. On something the size of a houseboat, it is imperative in high winds, as we were experiencing on this day, to get out and tie the upwind side as soon as possible, or the boat will quickly be turned into shore. As our last morning dawned, we did our last-minute packing and headed out. We were the first boat to dock, but there were several lined up right behind us. Back at the lodge, it was time to pack up, pay our boat gas bill, and head home. You can perhaps call us crazy, but Jamie and I used the 6 hours of boat driving on Friday and the 6 hours of driving the truck home to plan our next trip to Voyageurs National Park. This trip certainly isn't for everyone. I am blessed to have a wife that loves a little challenge and some adventure. It was a great way to spend our 30th anniversary.